This video was a follow-up to the one that I already made about center axis relock, so in order to understand this video in better context, I highly recommend that you watch the first video that I made. I'll link it in the description so that you don't have to do a world search for it. So, anyway, in this video, the points that I wanted to discuss, starting straight off the bat, is not to sound crude, but some people wonder, when it comes to holding the gun here close to the chest, how effective would this be for a woman that has huge tits? Well, it's still effective because here's the thing. When it comes to using any kind of firearm, you need to use safety gear. Anything that you're not wearing that can limit your performance, such as you're not wearing eye protection, you're not wearing something around the neck to stop brass from hitting on the open skin. I don't recommend doing any of that kind of stuff unless you got proper, training gear. So in relation to a woman, if you do have big tits that sag down and is going to get in the way, well, get a fucking supported bra, okay? This isn't fucking the bra burning era. Yeah, a bra is something that's going to, bring the tits up here and this not get in the way of the gun as you're using it, well then, that's the thing that you should be using. So, no, there are women out there that, proper, I'm talking. And, yeah, they can still use center axis relock, no problem. So, no, women with big boobs, using center axis relock isn't going to be an issue, but yeah, you do need to get some proper support for that area. That's all I'm going to say about that. The next point that I want to make is, someone was discussing the other day, why I would keep my thumbs together like so, and he asked two questions. One, does it get irritating being so close to the slide? And the other question was, can that stop the effectiveness of the slide moving back and forth? Alright, to answer the first question, it can get a little bit irritating, but no, it doesn't really bother me that much. But yeah, if you're on a shooting range, and say for example you shoot 500 rounds in a day, and you're constantly in this position, well then yeah, slide going back and forth 500 rounds, because really that's two motions. The slide's got to go back and then it's got to go forward, so 500 rounds, that's about like what, 1,000 times of motion this thing's going back and forth on the side of your thumbs. I have ended up with little bits of, rashes and stuff there, but nothing that's, really going to bother you if you're, unless you're a pussy, to put it bluntly. The other thing is that we don't push against the slide when our thumbs are like this. The thumbs only push towards each other. So in short, to answer the question of will it, limit the effectiveness of the gun in relation to the slide moving back and forth? No. But the other reason as to why the thumbs should be together and not crossed over like this, as I stated not to do in my first video, is that when we're in the close quarter position, one of the basic techniques that we're taught, if an opponent is close enough to grab our weapon, it doesn't matter if they try and grab the gun with their left hand, their right hand, both hands at the same time. The technique in question, and I'll do it slowly, is to use the elbow to knock the hands out the way. And we'll move it this way here, following along with the shoulder. If I only use my elbow, I move this far. I need to move the shoulder in order to get further distance.
If I want to defend my weapon from being grabbed, I'll bring the gun back to the high position and I'm able to block.
After years of law enforcement experience, Paul Castle has developed an exclusive method to handle and shoot firearms, more effective for shootouts in confined spaces.
Now here's the thing most people don't think about, and the reason they don't think about it is because, well, they probably haven't practiced this. But when the thumbs are together like this, as I move this elbow this way, what happens is it puts pressure on this thumb, thus putting pressure on this thumb, and then moves this weapon hand in this direction. And this is a good thing because it helps keep my elbow at the line of fire. As I mentioned in my first video, when you're in the close quarter position, the elbow should be back so that they don't, wind up in the line of fire. So, as I deflect an opponent's hands out the way, as I do this, thumbs together really helps keep the line of fire away from any part of my body. But if I cross my thumbs over like this, well, all of a sudden I've lost that tension that's placed against the other hand. So what happens from here is that I run the risk of bringing my elbow dangerously close back into the line of fire. Here, I'll do this in a little bit of a fast motion while not consciously thinking about it. Alright, so I'm going to pretend someone's trying to grab the weapon. Alright, I'll move back here, Now, as you can see, my elbow isn't in the line of fire, however it's a little bit too close for comfort. With my thumbs together, I'll do this again with the same state of mind. Okay, someone's going to try and grab the gun. I go like this. Alright, there we are. Look at how far away my elbow is now from where the line of fire is. So, all in all, this is another good reason as to why the thumb should always be kept together like this, among other reasons, but this is just one of them. So, yes, if you're in the close quarter position, definitely don't have your thumbs crossed over like this if you need to deflect someone else's hands. Now I want to discuss tactical reloads. The reason why I didn't bring that up in the first video was because I'm not really a big fan of tactical reloads. On top of that, the CAR system is geared towards survival and combat, not competition. So, with that being said, if I'm in a combat situation, the reason as to why I would need to reload my gun would be because I'm out of ammo. As far as I'm concerned, a tactical reload is when you take out this partially spent magazine from your gun and replace it with a full one, thus also retaining in your pouch the partially spent magazine. As far as I'm concerned, in a combat situation, if I have enough time to do that, I probably have enough time to do it slowly. Anyway, as far as combat reloads go, just to make another quick point, it doesn't always need to be done when the gun is completely out of ammo. It can be done when there's, you know, a little bit of ammunition left in the gun as well. But basically what a combat reload is when you let the magazine hit the floor. A tactical reload is where you retain the magazine that you are taking out of the gun. So, in slow motion, here's how a tactical reload is performed. I grab the magazine the same way that I would if it were, you know, a combat reload, and I grip it this way. This is referred to as the cigarette grip. I then, here you go, using my index fingernail and my thumb, take out the other magazine, place the fresh one in there like so, and now I then retain this into my pouch and use the weapon in whichever way the situation calls upon. So that's a tactical reload. Practice this enough and you will be able to do this with your eyes closed, as I just demonstrated right now. While we're on the topic of reloads, one variation that someone has when it comes to reloading the gun is to literally strip out the magazine like this, as opposed to flicking it this way and then flicking it back in. It is effective if you do have a gun that allows for you to do that. Not all magazines, however, have basically this part on here. Not all magazines have a section like this that allow you to really grip onto it and pull it out. If you also have a flared mag well, it also makes it difficult. So the reason why I taught the technique as to flicking it outwards and flicking it inwards is because regardless of what kind of semi-automatic pistol you have, that works with all of them. Now I want to discuss clearing malfunctions. In the gun world there are a lot of mixed opinions as to what a malfunction is. To me, what a malfunction is that if there's ammo in the gun and I pull the trigger expecting it to go bang and it doesn't, it's a malfunction. So it doesn't matter if it's a fact that the ammunition failed to detonate, it's a failure to feed, a failure to eject, or the gun is out of battery. A tap and rack is the thing that I recommend doing to fix all of those. And if you're the kind of person that has like a specific one technique for one of these particular, one technique for each one of these different things, well, you're probably a competition shooter and this video isn't for you. The time where a tap rack bang needs a bit of tweaking is if you get a double feed. And if you're unfamiliar with what these malfunctions are, it's pretty easy to look them up on Google, so go ahead. I'm not going to discuss them in this video. What I will say though is that there is a variation on how to clear a double feed compared to the way a lot of other people do it. So in order to clear a double feed, and generally the slide will be the littlest bit back, but what they'll do is they'll strip out the magazine, they'll retain it, they rack the slide 3 times, so 1, 2, 3, they'll put the magazine back in, rack the slide again, and then fire. The center axis relock variation looks something like this. Now I'm not saying this is more effective or less effective, but it is the way that it is taught in center axis relock, so you can make up your own mind about it. And here's how it's done. If a tap and rack doesn't fix the problem, what you do is you turn the gun upside down like so. You pull out the magazine, and yes, in a double feed situation you will actually have to pull out and strip the magazine manually, but take it out halfway. Use your little finger to lock that in place as it's upside down like this. Reach over the back end of the slide, pull it outwards, therefore any ammunition that's kind of like loose or shouldn't be in there that's causing the malfunction falls outwards, and you're using gravity to assist you here. My own variation of that is if you want to do it 3 times just to be sure, so 1, 2, 3, and kind of hold it back a little bit longer on the third one, then let it go. Then from here, whilst the gun is still at this angle, and here's it from this side if you want to get a better view of that, then slap the magazine back in, bring the gun up here, grip the gun this way. I never recommend anyone grabbing the gun this way. This is what I call pinching the back of the slide. This is what I call grabbing the back of the slide. So always use the grab, rack the gun, and then fire. Now the reason also as to why I prefer grabbing it like this and not like this is because it kind of forces me to compromise my already comfortable positions. If I'm in the high position from here, well, I can do this without coming off my general structure. Whereas if I got to do this, well, I'm way the fuck off now. If I'm in the combat position, this way here still keeps me relatively close to, well, the structure that I need to be in. If I have to do this, well, now I'm out of that again. So another reason as to why I prefer just having my hand on the back of the gun as I rack the slide. Well, that's how I clear those malfunctions. If the gun doesn't fire, however, because it's out of ammunition, well, it's a pretty simple process to fix that. Fucking reload. All in all, unless the gun's out of ammo, if it doesn't fire, tap and rack. If that doesn't work, do one of those other 2 following options, and after that, if it still doesn't work, well, chances are it's because your gun's fucked. So either if you have a backup piece, use that. If you've got a rifle, use that. You've got a knife, use that. Some other kind of weapon, use that. If the gun is for whatever reason the only weapon that you have, you can still use it as an impact weapon. I'm not going to go and tell you all the ways that you can use it as an impact weapon, but what I will do is link a video in the description to James Yeager discussing how you can use the gun as an impact weapon, because I use mine exactly the same way. So rather than me having to discuss it and take up more time in this video, you can just go watch his video. Right, let's discuss the Z scan, and yes, it is pronounced Z, not Z. The purpose of this is ordered to scan the danger zone for additional threats. So let me put this into further context. And in this instance, let's just say it was one person that I had to shoot. So they're in front of me. Anyway, I managed to draw my gun. I've shot them before they were able to shoot me. They've dropped on the ground. Now, because of the adrenal stress situations and everything, I probably developed tunnel vision. So if there's any additional threats around this way, they're a bit harder for me to see. So the idea of the Z scan is to scan across this way, then going back down diagonally, then across. Now, I'll do it in this direction because this is the way that you would be facing. So what you want to do when scanning, and it's performed in the combat high position, not in this position, not in this position. So what you do is I'll do it in the way that I'm facing because it'll look like a reverse C when you're staring at me, but basically it's... Okay, that's how it's performed. My whole body moves, it's not just the hands like this. So if you're facing this way, the direction of the Z will start from this way, then here to here. There is a breathing process that's performed with it, and it starts with an inhale. I'm not going to say inhale, exhale, I'll just say in and out because it's faster. So in, out, in, out. So when that's performed the way I do it, it's like this. Okay, that's the Z scan. When you're scanning from side to side, it shouldn't push any further out to either your peripheral vision area or to where the danger zone is. And keep in mind to practice doing that breathing motion because you don't get oxygen to your body. The brain doesn't get oxygen. You cannot function or focus as good as you can unless you're constantly proper ventilated. So breathe. After the Z scan is performed, the official way that I was taught for what to do after this was perform the Z scan, bring the gun back into the close quarter position with the line of fire still aiming towards that threat direction. When you can see that, the threat has been dealt with, reholster the weapon without looking down at your holster because you don't want to take your line of sight off of where the threat is. Then once the gun's reholstered, you can then look behind you. I had a few issues with this, some more than others, and it's not just me, other instructors I spoke to this about too also had some issues with it. Now, what some other guys like to do, I'll start with one of the things I like to do. After I've taken out, the threats in front of me, if I do need to perform the Z scan first, I will still then bring the gun back into the close quarter position. However, for what I prefer to do here is then look side to side for any additional threats. The thing that confused me is that they stated once the gun was reholstered, you can then, look behind you then. Now, if I truly thought that there wasn't any danger, I wouldn't need to look, side by side. So obviously part of me still believes that there could be some additional threats. With that being said, regardless of how fast I can get the gun out of my holster, if it's already in my hand and there is a threat that's going to come around, well, I've just quickened that process by, not reholstering it as I go and have a look. Some other guys, after they've taken out the threats in front of them, because they've already dealt with the main threats here, before performing the Z scan, after they go bang, 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 dropped however many people, they then want to bring the gun down to the combat high position, then look side by side to see if there's any additional threats. If there isn't, then they perform the Z scan, bring the gun back into the close quarter position in the direction of where the main threat was, and then from here they will reholster the weapon. Really, it kind of depends on the situation. If you're in such an area where there's maybe like a giant wall behind you, then yeah, I maybe recommend starting doing the Z scan first, then scanning side to side, because it's less likely that danger would be coming up this way. If you're in a much more bigger open area, well then yeah, probably after you take out the additional threats, maybe then scan side to side, then perform the Z scan. But I don't ever recommend holstering the gun and then taking a look around. It's just seems a bit stupid and counterproductive to me, and that's why I choose not to do it. So let's discuss shooting from obscure positions. This is not basics anymore, this is a little bit more advanced. And no, I'm not going to be doing a complete explanation of every single advanced technique, but this is what I can effectively show by myself and without a real gun or another person to demonstrate with certain things, such as, if someone grabs me from behind and tries to pin the weapon to me, what I can do, stuff like that. So anyway, now here's the thing. Now center axis relock needs to work in harmony with the body. So in order to angle off the body when I'm in obscure positions, it needs to be comfortable and it also needs to be effective. Now here's something else I'm going to reference in order to try and give an analogy to make this a little bit easier to understand. I'll start off with punches. If I wanted to do an effective straight punch towards me, I would need to punch this way. It wouldn't be this way or curl like that. So the grip of the gun should also be important as well. I see the gun as like an extension of my own fist, and it's kind of throwing like a punch or a strike out further than what I can reach with my own bare hands. So try to imagine Inspector Gadget with the like the Go-Go Gadget hands, or Go-Go Gadget fist. That'd be a great bedroom thing, but anyway. So if he says Go-Go Gadget fist, he'll be able to extend that punch on further than what we would be able to. So imagine the gun is like the Gadget fist, for an example. Now in the first John Wick movie, in the nightclub scene, there's the scene that everyone should already know about, where he hides behind the big like pillar or post, whatever it is you want to call it, where another guy's behind there trying to take cover, but his foot's extended, so John Wick aims behind it and has the gun upside down as he shoots him in the foot. And a lot of people are like, why is the gun upside down? Why didn't he have it up, the normal way like this? Well, here's the reason, and I'll use this to try and explain it as best I can. But it's a little bit difficult to see. Now, I'm going to look at a part of the floor to where, if this wasn't here, if someone was hiding behind here, where their foot would be if it was poking out a little bit. Now, if I've got the gun up like this, in order to effectively look down the sides, I really need to move my head all the way around, and I'm getting this huge tension on my neck. If I am it upside down like this and then look down this way, it's a lot more comfortable. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is that I have a better grip and recoil management if I have the gun upside down in that particular position. Now keep in mind, if the target was a bit higher up, then I would probably have the gun up in the regular position, as we would call it. But anything that's below where my hand is now, that I need to shoot around from that target, yeah, my weapon will generally be down. This is also why in John Wick 2, in that scene where he was fighting against a big sumo wrestler guy, and when he finished him off as he was walking away, the shot that he put into the guy's head that dropped in, the gun was also upside down because it was, he had to aim below where my hand is. The thing is that also is that, as I mentioned with trying to imagine powerful strikes, if there was someone, let's just for whatever reason imagine that they were this high and their face was here and I had to punch it, from this angle, the most effective way that I can do it is this way here with my fist upside down, not this way. If I punch this way here, yeah, it feels kind of effective, but this way here, I can feel like I've got a lot more power doing it this way. So that's just another similar principle as to why in that particular position the gun would be upside down. On top of that, if there was someone directly facing in front of me and I had to get the gun underneath them like this in order to put it around, through their jaw and up through their skull, I wouldn't have the gun this way like this because it's not great recoil management. This way is. Similar again, if I've got the gun this way here, if I had to uppercut someone to the jaw, I would do it this way. I wouldn't be doing it that way. So I wouldn't hold a gun this way, I would have to hold it this way. So any other kind of obscure positions you may think of as to the proper way that you should be holding a gun, well then, yeah. What I want you to imagine is that if you had to punch the person, if they were a little bit closer, how would your hand be? Chances are that you'll probably need to hold the gun that way. Another reason, if there's someone in front of me here and I had to punch him this way, well, yeah, this is the way that I'd be holding the gun from here. Anyway, again, there are so many different situations you could get into where it's so obscure and awkward ways to try and shoot around from, but the basics will generally cover most of that. But if they don't, well then, yeah, imagine whatever the target is, and yeah, if you had the Go-Go Gadget hands, then yeah, how would you extend it and what position would it be in order to reach it? Well, generally that's how you should be holding the pistol. Anyway, hopefully I explained that one as best I could. Tried to use the best analogy to try and make that as clear as possible, but if I didn't explain that clearly and you need a little bit more of a elaboration on that, well, let me know and I may do a follow-up video on that particular one. Alright, so we've already covered close quarter ready, close quarter, combat ready, combat, and apogee. One that we haven't discussed yet is this position, holding the weapon upwards. Alright, let me explain as to why there are certain situations where holding the gun up is the best option. Now, we already know that, at least I'm presuming you should know, when it comes to like tactical guys that use rifles or shotguns, basically some long weapon, yeah, there are situations where you should hold it upwards because, if you hold the weapon down, you run the risk of potentially muzzle swiping either your own teammates or civilians or personnel of some sort in general. But for some reason people don't seem to apply that principle to pistols, and I don't really know why. But if I'm in a situation where I've got the gun in this position here, and there's people around me, or even if there's one person that just so happens to be right here in front of me, and a threat emerges with a weapon a little bit further on in the same direction, well, I may not have the luxury to be able to angle around the person and shoot, and even if I do, they may walk into my line of fire. The other reason is because, well, there might be inanimate objects beside me that stop me from moving that way. If I'm in a narrow corridor or hallway, well, there's walls beside me that won't really allow me to do that effectively. If I'm walking down the alleyway of a bus, there's chairs, and the backrest of them is the thing that may stop me from being able to maneuver that way. So yeah, there are times where I may want to have the gun up because while I'm in this position, it might be easier for me to shoot over the person. Even if I say duck, they can duck down, I'll lean over and shoot, but if I'm in this position here, if I say duck and they duck down, well, I still have to muzzle swipe them. And I don't really want to do an angled sweep like this, because, well, I'm not going to curve a fucking bullet, this isn't wanted. But the other reason is that it's going to take me longer in order to get my gun onto the threat. And I want to be able to take out threats as quickly as possible. Every little millisecond, nanosecond counts to me here. About 7 or so years ago, a Krav Maga instructor, who I will not name, stated that professionals never hold the gun up like this, and that this is something that only actors do, because if they need to do a close-up shot of the actor's face, then they can get the gun in the same camera angle. Yes, that is a movie technique, but the other reason as to why he stated this is because, well, I guess also the people that he trained with in Israel don't have this as part of their system. But he also said that if the gun goes off when it's this far away from your face, then it can be a very big problem. That's true, it is a very big problem. But you know what's a bigger problem? Idiots that cause these negligent discharges by having the finger on the trigger and then pulling it. So if that's you, you're a fucking idiot and don't deserve a gun. Other than that, I can't really think of any other reasons to why the gun would go off when it's this far away from your face. So, with that being said, here's how we hold the gun upwards in center axis relock. And generally speaking, if the gun's in your right hand, people that use Weaver and isosceles will have it on this side of their body. It's the opposite for center axis relock, which should come as no surprise. If the gun's in the right hand, we look down the sights with our left eye. And of course, vice versa for that principle. So, if you're looking down the sight with your left hand, with your left hand eye, then the weapon is brought onto the left hand side of the body, and pay attention to the way that I'm angling it. So I'm bringing it close to my body here, I'm pulling it in, and angling the gun sort of like diagonally away from me. And here's 3 reasons as to why I hold it here. 1, I don't hold it up like this because if I need to scan around and look to the side, the gun is in the way. So I want to have it down here. And the other reason as to why I want it on the left hand side is because from this position, if I want to transition from the, I'll just call it the gun held up position, if I want to transition from here into the combat position, I would need to do this. If the gun's on the other side, I would have to do this. And what happens is the gun is moving past my line of sight, my field of vision, and even if I'm staring this way here, it's moving in my peripheral vision, and it's not what I want. Not only is there a blurred effect when this happens, but depending on the lighting surrounding me, if there's a lot of sunlight, if there is, just fluorescent lights that are really bright and powerful, and the gun reflects this glare, I don't want that glare partially burnt to my retinas as I'm, trying to fight in a combat situation. So, anyway, even if the gun on this side is aimed downwards, where it's also not getting in my peripheral line of sight as I'm moving my head around, generally speaking, it still will if I need to move to the combat position, but even from here to the close quarter position, it's not. But the other issue with having it on this side here, so we've already established if it's on this side here and I've got to go to the combat position, moves through my my vision box. But if I've got it here, if I need to transition to the combat position, all I got to do is this, and it's a very short motion. If I need to move into the close quarter position, it's basically just a drop of my hands. If it's here, even though it's low enough here for me when I go into the close quarter position not to move into my line of sight, I still have to cover all this distance as opposed to it here just covering this distance. So that again, if I'm here, this is the distance I cover. If I drop down to the close quarter position, if it's here, all I got to do is really bring it upwards like this when moving into the combat position. And again, if I need to press that to the apogee position, well, it's not really an issue either from having the gun on this side of my body. So these are the reasons as to why I do it this way. Now, the other thing you may have noticed is that my elbows are tucked in. As I did state in the close quarter position when transitioning from here up to the combat position, not to change the structure of your arms. It's a little bit different when it comes to having the gun up like this. Reason being is because if I keep my arm structure the same way, well, my elbow's poking out. So the last thing I need now as I'm walking around is to either hit my elbow into inanimate objects or just knock people out while on the move. Last thing I want to mention, someone just the other day asked me, how effective is center axis relock for when you're gripping something like a 50 cal Desert Eagle in this position? Because they really thought that it was for like 9mm or something that has like a similar recoil to that.
Look, aim it, come up and aim it, and take your shot. So when someone says that's bullshit, how can you fire a solid slug from a pistol grip shotgun and hold it like it's a pistol without it flying back? What have you just seen? It's the system. Can you load one more?
Now, no, this is not the way that you fire a pistol grip shotgun in the center access relock system, but the video was out of context. I don't know why he was holding it that way, but all in all, he's able to fire it and it still has a really great grip on it. So if you can do that with a pistol grip shotgun, you can do it with a 50 cal Desert Eagle. Anyway, with all this being said, thanks for watching, and the next time I do a video, I'm going to be doing it on submachine guns, assault rifles, and shotguns. So stay tuned for that and stay safe. Hang on a second, there's a low battery warning on this thing. Excellent.